I already know that I'm about to upset some of my fellow foundational Black Americans with this video. And my perspective on the subject matter, however, unlike mainstream podcasts or popular personalities that you have felt that they're qualified to provide our community with life advice based on their zero credibility, I figured that, you know what, I'll join that club since it seems to be the most effective when it comes to words that deal with our current national community. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add real genuineness, love, and empathy to my delivery instead. I'm a mother and I have an awesome daughter that I'm so proud of that I can't thank God enough. Along with my son-in-law and the rest of my family and very close friends, I feel so wealthy that I feel filthy rich with an abundance of love, care, and I'm so impressed with the people within my circle. They are some of the most accomplished, and I'm so proud that I've been enriched by other cultures and races that have joined within that tight circle of mine. Now, we share real love, and that love is impacted with real conversations. And we can be vulnerable with each other. And one thing that I personally have shared with my family and friends is a concern that keeps eating away from me personally. Because I didn't grow up under this particularly strange climate that I just cannot get acclimated to, no matter how I try to adjust my mindset. My community of people keep on telling me to just keep dressing for bad weather when I grew up experiencing mostly sunny days. It's kind of hard to adjust after experiencing sunny days as a Black woman in a strong Black American community since the late 70s until about 2018. Did we have our own ongoing challenges? Absolutely. But we had a sense of true pride and an exposure of being Black in America through the lens of being descendants of slaves in a country that refused to give us peace and equality. Something started to shift in 2018, and maybe some may say later or even earlier, but for me it started with outside communities finding behavior that our real big mamas and our real uncles and grandpas that loved us for real would have never approved of 20 or 30 years ago, because they saw it as trending and something that pushed this new social media beast. Our community started to become more emboldened, the more encouraged. When white women especially started to discover that they could take those twerking or quote unquote ratchet nuances that were never seen as negative for Black women but had became shock value for white women, to use American ebonics and colloquialisms that were never new to our community, but now all of a sudden it's just amazing in outside communities. They were becoming contracted with household names, and yet our community started to suffer and slowly became defaced in value. Then it showed with the TikTok dance trends that this theory had some substance, that white women were copying Black culture, because when Black American dancers decided to suddenly strike from uploading their own creative moves, suddenly white TikTok accounts with multi-million-dollar brand deals were also taking these same break times from uploading their own creative dances that should take on. Now there's been Cash Me Outside, and with the rise of Black and white relationships and the financial benefits of Black American men, primarily from Southern white colleges, rooted from plantation culture, they now went into multi-million-dollar NFL contracts. This is something that's added on to this issue. Cotton was no longer the product. Instead, the crop is your longevity inside the league. This provided other communities that would be vetted by the overwhelming majority of white male coach led college football teams. They would allow their black male players to be conveniently co-managed by their white female students' staffs. And that gave them closer proximity to make an impression on black American men. They had primarily only experienced true acceptance by their black mothers, their black sisters, and black former girlfriends before they got into these colleges or even the NFL. But with this misguided freedom of new money and dwindling lack of fathers in their homes, this white acceptance into their family created a false perceived misreality. Because when the contract ends, most of the time, so does the access to Christmas with her family. Well, that now creates a bitter young black American man that is now going back into his community, full of black women that are not impressed on if he can get their family into the college football season with primary tickets. They're now faced with black women that are having to maintain a sense of community with less resources, sometimes less education, less worldly experiences that has not been provided to her with the lack of a two-parent household to grow up in. So she may not deliver her moment of frustration in the way that he had experienced it when he had access to white women. He had been exposed to these frustration moments in 4 to 6 years because therefore frustrations are applauded, and you know what? They're handled by the men in their community, while the women in his black community have to just figure it out. Now, with this mixture of expectations of what black men are seeing, because let's be honest, men lead with their eyes, and those choices are based on what they see. On the other hand, women primarily lead with their emotions. With the lack of resources in our community, and that we're also trying to rebuild what it is to be black and American in a post-civil rights established country, while still having to entirely revisit the same core arguments to maintain those said rights, it's a lot. We've seen black men just want to flee the scene. Literally. They will flee with a passport to an entire country to date versus having to box the white control system in the country of their birth, knowing that they'll lose, not being able to afford to build a life that is deserving of the black American woman, that has provided more than worthiness. She's provided then some, because he knows that she has always had his back and has had to what? Figure it out. And he can't provide marriage with no means. So he creates a delusion called passport bros. He creates scenarios within easy to vent to podcasts that will hear his ongoing frustrations of dating in a resource strapped community. He's still being solicited by women that are in other communities where he won't have to be expected to play the lead role, like he would have to do in his own black American community. That feels like a peace of mind. That feels like a break, less stress. And there must be something that they are doing. These women are doing something in these communities that you black women are not doing in our communities. Saying that, believing that, all while still unable to climb that corporate ladder, climb that economic ladder, just as easy as your white male counterparts here in America. You have the same degree, or you may have the same CDL, same certification, same equipment that you purchased with your hard-earned money, etc. Yet you can't seem to stay out of the child support rears. And instead of celebrating marriage anniversaries with the same woman, no matter what her race might be, you are now mastering the art of ducking paycheck garnishments. Each one creates a new enemy on your list every time you get a new child support filing. And they're not actually your enemy. They're the mother of your unsupported kids that you're creating in broken homes. So while you're talking down publicly and humiliating black women, to anyone that'll listen, the Black American woman is now done with her own research and has discovered that her degree, owning her own home and creating a stable life for your children, may not be together, but it'll definitely be done without you. This data exchange within the community of black women, and the report came back. And it's better to do this, quote unquote, alone and by myself. The very small population of black American men that actually choose marriage, if at all, and especially to the black American woman, can't pull the surmounting weight on their very small pooled of shoulders. The weight is too much to bear. Now, this outward disdain is being monitored by those that have always monitored our movement. From the country music we created on their plantations, using the banjo we recreated from memory after surviving the passage into slavery, to the foods that we improved to eat at their dinner tables with our mastery of spices, to the jazz we blew around in New Orleans and the rock, shake, and roll we improvised from the black gospel music of the church houses that they didn't halfway burn to the ground. Even the hip hop we created on those mixtapes. Remember those mixtapes? While laying across our beds, reading a Roared Up magazine, while listening to the Top 888. Even that was taken by other communities to be profited. And I'll even say this, a lot of Jewish CEOs and presidents of music companies polluted, profited, and used a culture and turned it into a nuclear weapon that motivated us to kill each other, practice colorism, and encourage black men to call their own women bees and hoes. Those are the ones that now sit back on their keyboard. A lot of them are the same ones. They'll sit back on their keyboard that have monitored all of this behavior in our communities. And they now type fatigue that are in this country, black Americans. Our minority is still paying for the sins of our ancestors that dared to be free. We are still paying for it with our worth and excellence being diminished to a 3-letter acronym called DEI. Yet we will not DIE because they take DEI. We will flip DEI and now we're quiet. But for the very first time in history, they don't typically read history because they don't read history that's already halfway told, but they'll sell it to our public school systems for our children to read and are required to reverberate it. So this quietness is something new, but there's a but. There's a strong but. This is where we need to talk. My black American community, my foundational black American sisters and brothers. 2 years ago, on an official event, there was a public officiant from Israel. She made a declaration against the black American youth and their future. And she stated that they are an enemy, an existential threat to our society. Who? Not our black American youth, not the ones that create these trends that their Israeli sons and daughters are copying over there and here in America. Not our youth that are so influential around the globe that people are no longer looking up Google on how to get just braids and act black. Oh no. They now have created a new term on how to turn yourself black American altogether. It's not passing. It's been called now trans black or trans identity. So What's the problem? Is what you're probably going to ask me. Well, within all of this greatness, we have a lack of big mamas. We have a lack of those unks that, you remember what I said in the beginning, that really loved you. People that used to pull your ear from the church pew, and then they'll give you a big peppermint ball to soothe those tears quickly after. We've lost that, one, because religion for the first time has become more of a point of view and conversation versus attendance. And that's been the first for us in American history, because a lot of our movements started out of the church. And this connection kind of has jeopardized and has also been hyper jeopardized by COVID. Now, our babies have been robbed. And I'm talking about our young ones from K through 12. A lot of them. They've been robbed a step that you and I had along the way. A step that didn't allow us to jump over. This step had boundaries. Never, ever, ever would we be able to go on our phone, order a ride share on a school night, and meet hundreds of other teens downtown or in our cities or in our parks to cause havoc, and then come back home freely when we want to through the front door, not sneak through the window. Walk boldly through the front door. Go to bed when we want to on our phones, and don't even have to be required to get up in the morning time to be present for school. Never would we have ever had the audacity to do that. I'm a 70s baby. My 70s, my 60s, my 80s babies, even some of my early 90s, never. You may have had a pager or a beeper, and that better be on silence in classroom. Never once have we had teachers that just wanted to systematically leave the public education system all at once. Never. And never have we not required our children to be expected to do above and beyond with less. Never. What do we need to do? First, I want to say this: we have to be the example. One thing I noticed that even with my adult daughter over the years, things that I did, she may decide to do. So I had to be careful on what I did. I'm not perfect, but I had to push myself to do certain things so that later on I wouldn't create an excuse for her to say that she couldn't do it. You have to be the example, even when you're tired, even when you're stressed out, even when you're stripped of resources. You have to create new resources, discover resources, because your children are worth it. The second thing I want to advise parents to do is this. This is a new climate, and it seems as if there's a disconnect between public school attendance and the evening time, because there is such a wider span of single family homes, unfortunately, in this new era, more so within the Black American community. That means that there are more mothers that are outside and more fathers that are outside during the work day hours. A lot of times older children are having to be responsible for the younger kids, but no one is checking in on them. And that's where a lot of this attendance is having a problem. It's a lot with the older kids and some with the middle school. So what I encourage parents to do is this: rally for your school districts to create night school. and not just for a particular group of children. Maybe in this climate, you need to require that your public school systems and your charter schools change their hours altogether. If you feel like you can be a more supportive parent academically for the school, for the teacher and the staff, so that you can produce a more highly educated student that you are going to help to progress out of your home and for them to become a productive member of society, you need to do what you have to do. If you feel like your kid has a lot of responsibility and stress that has been poured onto them from your own responsibilities due to a lack of another parent in the household, you have to do and you have to request the things that you need so that our children can succeed and they are not victims. Because if we don't do this, we are setting up our kids to become victims, sitting ducks, failures, to be taken on, and they're going to use our kids that fail to profit off of them. Also too, if you feel as if you need to better understand what it is that you need in regards to economics, you need more money. We have to look at getting back together, using churches, community centers to start bringing up the conversation about not necessarily fighting for policies within this country. We have to talk about pooling resources together. And that means that taking a chip back off of the things that we used to do, and that's called multi-generational residential living. That means that grandmama lives with us, aunties live with us, people that we can trust around our children that don't have, speculative criminal past, issues with being around children and elderly folks, that we can pool our resources together and live in one multi-generational home. Buy homes that way. You have more than one income coming in. It's just not on one person. Keeping the properties that we have inherited with our heritage, with our citizenship being here in this country for over 500, 600 years. So we have something that the parties that you vote with, they are not considering the need of the foundational Black American family, and that is family. It is not sexuality. It is not citizenship for us. It is family. And it doesn't mean that everybody's going to get married, but what it does mean is that if we can get multi-generational family members to stay home, to live together, pool resources together, I think that we would be able to see an increase in our overall household incomes that come into us in the next year or two. We'll no longer be at the bottom anymore of household incomes based off of a United States chart. We'll start to rise back up again because we have less economic leverage in this country versus some of our ancestors when they first just got out of slavery, and that's not good. Please let me know what you think. Please like, share, and subscribe. I wish you well. Let me know what you think, and I hope you have a blessed rest of your day.